Good morning, beloved ones. Turn to some. Oh, you all were tired. Oh, good morning, beloved ones. Now, isn't that a higher vibration? Didn't that feel better? Yes, yes, yes. We are coming, bringing our full vibration to this experience and to this moment. Because the vibration we put out is the vibration we receive, right? And so we have to come at life with everything we have, including our good mornings. Well, I just want to take a moment and just kind of look at you. I said I was going to tell you all to look at one another and tell them, you look marvelous. Look at somebody and tell them, you look marvelous. You look marvelous. Yes, you look marvelous. It feels like I haven't seen you all for a while, but we have had an interesting start to this new year, have we not? It's been an interesting start. You know, half the country was hit by massive winter storms, stopping and paralyzing us for a few moments, interrupting the flow. Excuse me? Okay, she's giving my sermon for me, okay? But interrupting our flow, you know, the normal expression, I'm gonna get to that too. But it's not until 2 more paragraphs. So anyway, but I was taken by surprise by the storm. I was coming back from a conference that I attended in Miami, and I see one of my Grovers here too. But I was in Miami in the sun, and all of a sudden I get to the airport, and they tell me all of the flights to DC are canceled. And I'm like, what? You know, and they said, well, they're predicting a snowstorm. And so I had a funeral that Sunday to do as well. But, you know, try as I may, I tried all day and went to Fort Lauderdale and tried to get a flight. We were going to go to Palm Springs. But anyway, there was nothing moving and coming this way. So it took me 2 days to get home. I got to visit Houston for a while. But I made it back Sunday night, and so I was thankful. And I wanted to thank Rev Bev, too, for standing in it at such short notice for me. So let's thank her. But then when I finally did get home, you know, it was wham! 2 back-to-back record-breaking storms. And so I shoveled. And then I shoveled some more. And then I did what? Shoveled some more. And I was thinking all of that snow was really unexpected, and it was sort of disruptive and challenging, to say the least. At least physically challenging as well. But there was also something unique and powerful about it, because it was a cause to pause, right? It did give us that opportunity to simply stop and to slow down and to rest. It was as if the universe said, you folks on the East Coast are doing way too much. You need to slow it down. You need to rest. It was a good community builder, because I had an opportunity to meet some of my neighbors, you know, that I hadn't seen or in a while. We usually, maybe somebody might drive into their house, but we had a chance to fellowship as we were digging one another out, you know, and shoveling our walkways. And so it was a great opportunity to talk and to support each other. That was great. And if nothing else, it helped us to become appreciative about the ability to go to work. Because after a while, cabin fever sets in, right? I mean, it's nice for a while, but after a while, you're like, I need to get out of here. I need to move. I need to, you know, be about my business and to get out into the world. And so we were glad when we could finally make our way to the store. And so it had some divine purposes. But what we have seen, I think, is that Mother Nature can be quite powerful and quite humbling. Quite humbling, whether it be with storms or floods or hurricanes or tsunamis or earthquakes, fires, mudslides. All of these things can be devastating. So the question for us then becomes, how do we weather the storms of life. And I'm not talking just about the physical, natural storms of life, but I'm talking about how do we weather those events and those situations that were neither expected nor desired by us. Those circumstances that may be even life-altering that come our way. You know, some things change our lives forever that happen to us. Or maybe it could be the hard issues and the hard things and conditions that we might have to face. Maybe it's the death of a loved one. Or maybe you received a devastating diagnosis from the doctor, or loss of employment, or loss of your home. And I could go on with several examples, but the point is, friends, is that we will have those experiences that may bring pain and even some suffering, that might bring us great challenge and emotional and psychological upheaval. We may have to experience those conditions that cause us to reassess our values and our core beliefs, the things that we say we believe in. Maybe we're being shaken up. We might have to realign what we think is our purpose, or what we thought was our reason for being, and now all of a sudden things have shifted and changed completely. We might have to take a moment to recognize that our faith may be tested and challenged, and we might even question God. Why God? Why me? Why now? And on top of that, all of these things may even come to us back to back. You know, they may happen. A series of events may happen where it feels like just as soon as we handle and get rid of one situation, here comes another right behind it. And so we're not even sure whether we have the ability to just catch our breath, or the strength to endure, or to meet, or to face the task that's before us. And friends, these are powerful observations, because I and many others believe that we are in the midst of some tremendous changes. You know, it's not just waiting for 2012, because it's happening now. We are in the midst of something very, very powerful. The world order, friends, is undergoing significant transformation. Systems and institutions are breaking down that we've had for years. The earth is shifting. The climate, environmental, and essence of how the climate is coming about is changing dramatically. Social dynamics are changing because we now have the ability to be in closer proximity to people and cultures around the globe. It's no longer just our little world that we exist in, but we now interact and must interact with people on a global level. They're in our living room. They're in our presence through the internet. And so life, as we know it, is changing. It is. And now I'm not saying all this to present a doomsday scenario, predicting the end times. But I am saying that I believe that the clarion has been sounded, alerting us to not only wake up, but to begin also to begin to live and express in new ways. That we can no longer live the way we've lived before, think the way we have thought before, interact with people in life and the earth in the ways that we have done so in the past. That the clarion is saying it's a new day, a new age, that we have to have new ways of being and showing up on the planet. We have to be in touch with spiritual ways and empowered ways and higher ways. We are at the end, friends, of an era, the end of an age, the end of a way of living and being, not the end of the world. You need to hear that. It's not about the end of the world, but it is at the end of a way of being. The way we have been has served us well. It's brought us to this place in time in history. and to the great accomplishments we have garnered as a species on the planet. But now something new is being called for, bringing in that new heaven and that new consciousness upon the earth, a new heaven, a new way of being. So the end of the ways that we're speaking of is the end of how we have previously engaged in the world. It's not the end of the world, but how we have engaged with the world and with one another. And the ending does not have to be scary. It can be exciting. It can be empowering, because think about it. We, for some reason, are living at this crucial moment in time, at this powerful moment. We are here on the planet. It's exciting because we have the ability to actually usher in a new age, a new life expression. Right? We are the ones, and now is the time. We are the ones, and now is the time. But we have to be prepared for it. We've got to be prepared for even greater changes, because they are on the way. They are here. And so we've got to be prepared. And usually it's easier to handle change and the fear that usually accompanies any change, right? Because when there's change, wait a minute. Not too sure I want this to change. But it's easier to handle it when we are prepared for it. When you can be prepared for that which is about to come into your life. When you know how to handle it, or when you have the tools that you need to face your situations and your issues and your circumstances, whatever they may be. And friends, we probably will be faced with things that we've not encountered before. That we're going to be called to stand up and express in ways that we have never done before, because it is going to be a new dawning. And so how do we prepare? What do we do? Well, Jesus was quite clear in how to weather the storms of life, how to weather all these changes. And in his powerful teachings that he offered on the Sermon on the Mount, he gives this. This is found in Matthew 7, verses 24 through 27. And this is on how to weather the storms of life. And he says, anyone who listens to my teachings, and he has just given a series of teachings, right? He says, anyone who listens to my teachings and obeys me is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Though the rains come in torrents, and the flood waters rise, and the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse, because it is built on a rock. But anyone who hears my teaching and ignores it is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rains and the floods come and the winds beat against that house, it will fall with a mighty crash. And after he finished speaking, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, for he taught as one who had real authority, quite unlike the teachers of religious law. Now, it's been said that the whole of Jesus' teaching, all of his teachings, could really be summarized in the Sermon on the Mount, which is found in the book of Matthew 5, 6, and 7. That all of his teaching really could be boiled down to what he says in those chapters. And he's teaching the disciples and everybody who had gathered at that time. What he does is he's really teaching them in how to deal with life itself. Read those chapters. He's dealing with how to handle the very practical experiences of life. He's teaching them how to treat others and how to work with others. That's about human relationships. How do we come into relationship with the other? He's teaching about the attitudes and the perceptions we should have and how we should be in our attitudes with the Beatitudes. He's teaching how to pray, how to deal with the perceived enemies that we might say we have, how to handle money, how to handle our possessions. He's teaching them in these 3 little chapters how to understand the nature of God and ourselves as divine offspring, how to work with everyday life. Because all of this is about how to remove those obstacles and those things that the emotional and psychological things that become roadblocks for us and prevent us from really demonstrating on that spiritual level. How to remove all of those things. And so in short, what he's doing, he's teaching all about consciousness development. How to develop the consciousness, friends, because life is consciousness. Everything begins from within to the without. So how do you develop then the consciousness that will lead to the Christ awareness and the Christ consciousness and the Christ empowerment that is within us and who we really are? And in the scripture that I just read, he says, anyone who listens to my teachings and obeys me is wise, like a person who has built a house on solid rock. Now, a house, metaphysically, we know means it represents a state of consciousness. The house is where you live, right? Where do you live? Inside your being. And so it represents your thoughts and your feelings and your choices and your decisions and your perceptions and your attitudes, your actions, which all begin within you first. Your house that houses your spirit, soul, mind, and body. And so he's saying here that we want to build our house, build our consciousness on something that is solid. Something that will enable us to be sustained as we move through life and all of its ups and downs and the torrents and the winds and the waves that beat against us. And when your consciousness is built upon spiritual teachings and spiritual principles and spiritual perspectives of that Christ, then you are creating a solid foundation, a rock-solid foundation upon which you can stand. You just told, what do you do when you stand? First of all, you got to have a solid foundation to stand upon, right? And so this is, whenever we allow ourselves to put spirit first, we're building that foundation so that when the winds blow and the rains come and the floodgates of life and the waters of heaven just open up and begin to rise in our lives, that you and your consciousness can withstand it all. You can handle and hold up under the torrents of life. See, truth and spiritual principles and the spiritual perspective, that's your sure foundation. And so you have to fill your consciousness with it, fill your mind, fill your heart with it, so that that's the only thing that you see. And you begin to build your life around the things that truly matter. Because we can see that people are beginning to awaken to the fact that they have placed their hope in sinking sand. That it's not the stock market that holds the key, or the banks, or the financial institutions, because they have given us the illusion of security, the illusion of a rock-solid foundation, but it was all sand. Because those things by themselves cannot stand. Something else is needed. They can't stand, so when the rains come and the winds blow, they fall, they crumble. And friends, the rains will come and the winds will blow. But we have to learn not to get distracted and caught up when they come. See, not get thrown off our center, blown off our course when they come. You remember Peter, the disciple Peter, when he observed Jesus walking on the water? And he said, "Oh, I'd like to be able to do that." And he called and he said, "Jesus, bid me to come. Allow me to come where you are. I want to do that." And Jesus just said, "Come." And so Peter gets out the boat and starts walking on the water, doing it. And then the scripture says, all of a sudden, he began to notice. He looked up and he noticed the winds and the waves all around him. And all of a sudden, it says, immediately, he did what? He began to sink. You see, what happens is when we begin to notice all the winds and the waves, when we take our eyes off of that prize, when we take our eyes off of the truth, we begin to sink, we begin to fall. Friends, when those winds and waves blow, we have to keep your eyes single, keep your heart open, keep your minds open, and upon the truth that you know, the spiritual principles that are your rock and your foundation. You can't get caught up in what the news people are saying. You can't get caught up in the hysteria that's going around, and it's going to get even more and more intense. And so people will be living in fear. There's going to be a lot more energy, and we have to be able to handle that and not succumb to it and not get stuck in looking at it and talking about it and worrying about it, because you will sink. You will sink. So when we shore up our foundation, that is, we're going to build our consciousness up. We begin to see the good everywhere. We've got to be able to see the good in the times of change and confusion. You have to be able to look past the appearances. That's what Jesus said, right? Judge ye not by appearances. Stop looking at the conditions out here. And learn how to see only the good. We're going to have to learn how to apply the principles of truth to the error that is before us. And there's a lot of error before us. We're going to have to learn how to not be distracted and caught up in the prevailing fear of the day, whatever it is. So sometimes, friends, we're going to have to do some exercise. We're going to have to learn how to dig ourselves out. You got to dig out from all the burdens of the issues and the events that are facing you. If you wanted to get outside of your house, somebody had to dig out, didn't they? You had to dig out, right? So you've got to be strong. You've got to be fortified. I recognize I might have been in much worse shape had I not been going to the gym when I was doing all that shoveling. But thank God I was able to get out of the bed the next day. A little bit sore, but not as much as had I not been exercising my body. See, you've got to be strong enough to dig through and plow through all of the issues that are facing you and that are blocking you and keeping you stuck and keeping you confused and keeping you in pain. You got to dig through those and to do the work that is yours to do. You've got to work on your consciousness, work on your life. And so we dig and we shovel and we move and we plow. We get to the heart of what's happening. And then there are going to be those times, friends, when you're going to have to know when to rest. When to stop and cease all of your efforting and to be still and to take those few moments and those times when you are snowed in and snowed under with all of the things that are happening in your life. You've got to just rest and be still and be quiet. You might have to learn how to also just to let. Sometimes you've got to let the way out be revealed. Somebody said that the way out is the way in, that the way in is really the way out. And so we have to learn how to also just let things sort of wash away. You might have to let things melt under the light of truth. See, we got to do a little shoveling, a little digging, but also God is working. And the light of truth will also melt away some of these issues and some of these things. So if you find yourself caught up in all of the heaviness of life and the floods and the torrents of life, you maybe feel like you're drowning under your responsibilities and your tasks and your obligations and your work and your issues and your events and circumstances and your relationships. Ooh. Don't struggle and fight against it, because struggling just causes you to sink deeper. Learn to float. Learn to go with the flow. Learn to relax your body and your mind. Think about it. When you are in a sea of stuff, and the currents of the sea are heavy, the ocean is strong, right? But when you are in that midst, the way of survival sometimes is learning how just to relax your body, to relax your mind, so that you just float along with whatever is. You don't struggle and fight. You float along until you can then reach a safe harbor. And trusting God is key. Trusting God is part of the process. You do your work, but then you trust that it will be fine. You must recognize that nothing lasts forever. Sometimes when we're in the middle of our stuff and we feel like we are drowning and sinking, but nothing lasts forever. That too will change. Things will change. The sun will rise. There will be a brighter day, a new day. And it's this perspective that we have that will keep us open and receptive and allow Spirit to move us through the storms of life. And so this is our work. This is what we're here to do. If ever there was a time for masterful metaphysicians, this is it. This is our time. We are the ones, friends. It's now. We can no longer fake it. You can no longer just come here and soak in all the message and go out and forget. We must demonstrate the truth that will truly set us up, free us up, and take us through the days that are ahead of us and push us upward and onward, higher to the next level of life. Spirit has been prompting me for quite some time to help us to get ready for this new day, this new dawn, so that we become enlightened leaders and empowered truth students and magnificent light bearers, because we are going to have to show the way. And so I want you to be on the lookout. I want you to be on the lookout for an upcoming spiritual mastery course for everyday living. It's going to be a wonderful course. It may last a year or two, but it's going to get us ready because we're going to do our work. Our inner work. It'll be practical. We have to stand on the truth that we know. So be on the lookout for that, to work with a commitment, to fortify your spirit, to have the right perspective, to know that you are the empowered child and expression of God, able and capable. And so it's our time to go deeper. It's our time to go higher. But let's all build our house upon the rock of truth. Blessings. 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 Thank you.
Times in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on Him when you're not strong. He'll be a friend. He'll help you carry on. Yeah. You're gonna need some spirit to lean on. Oh, please swallow your pride. He has all the things that you need to borrow, for no one can fill all of your needs till you just let them show. All you gotta do is call on the Spirit when you need a hand, 'cause we all need some spirit to